And we will concentrate on Eurasian Economic Union strategy beyond 2025, and then we'll continue on ASEAN economic strategies, and then on our integration and our cooperation, and the matters of institutionalization of our interaction further. And for today, we have our prominent speakers, which are presenting here in Jakarta at the ASEAN Secretariat, and speakers are joining online. First of all, let me present you our keynote speaker, and I would like to give a floor to His Excellency Dr. Sergei Glaziev, Member of the Board, Minister for Integration and Macroeconomics of the Eurasian Economic Union, over the Eurasian Economic Agenda. Please, Your Excellency, you're welcome. Keynote speech.
Thank you, Nikita. Dear colleagues and participants, I would like to express my deep appreciation to the ASEAN Secretariat for today's event. It is really very important for us. The dynamics of cooperation between our two integration organizations and our involvement in regional processes within global context indicate that we speak the same language, which is understood throughout Eurasia, share the similar economic agenda, share the similar goals, and use the similar mechanisms of integration. Cooperation between our organizations helps us to create conditions for stable development of our member states' economies, for sustaining rapid economic development of our countries and improve living standards. Today's event is very important. It is symbolic. This is the first event of this kind that our union holds at the headquarters of a regional partner organization. This is also a crucial step in the implementation of the program of cooperation between Eurasian Economic Commission and ASEAN Secretariat for the period since 21st year till 25th, according to our memorandum, which was mentioned by Nikita. This makes the 5th anniversary of official relations between the Eurasian Economic Commission and ASEAN, established by signing the Memorandum of Understanding, which was mentioned today. We have opportunity to discuss the most promising areas of our interaction, overlapping points of agenda, common views and sources of sustaining growth, points the convergence of our strategic plans, and many other interesting and useful subjects. So let's start our seminar, and I'd like you to present a brief information concerning the Eurasian Economic Union structure, our functions, our prospects, and opportunities for cooperation. The agenda, integration agenda of ASEAN wider than agenda of the Eurasian Economic Union, which is purely economic and trade organization. Nevertheless, our integration agendas overlap. We have a lot of common ground and good opportunities for the further development of the dialogue. Yesterday we spoke about the long-term planning, long-term strategic documents which we are elaborating. As I mentioned, we are planning to adopt the declaration about the development of Eurasian Economic Union till the year 2030 and prospects for the year 2045. We see that in ASEAN, Secretariat is also involved in the discussion of the long-term prospects, which is extremely important in the present turbulent world economy, which really needs the places of sustainable growth. And ASEAN becomes one of the most dynamic region in the world, and one of the core of the emerging the new economic mode in Southeastern Asia. Our Eurasian Economic Union also have a lot of opportunities for sustainable growth. We implement our own economic space according to our own economic regulation, which give us more opportunities for sustainable development. The processes in our regions are rather similar. We have to find opportunities to accelerate growth during the financial crisis, to maintain the living standards during the pandemic, and now in the present turbulent and aggressive environment which we see from the Western countries, we have to find our own way, to find our own solutions of the emerging problems, and to prevent any external shocks which could damage our cooperation. And what is the most important to my mind, we share the similar principles and values of integration. Our integration is based on the national sovereignty, respectability. All member countries maintain their sovereignty and delegate some functions of regulation of the common economic space according to their own interests. And I can say you that according to our experience, 5 countries created the Eurasian Economic Union and delegated to the Eurasian Economic Commission the functions of trade regulation, of tariff regulation, of custom regulation, technical regulation, harmonization of industrial and agricultural policy. Our up-national border, Eurasian Economic Commission, has opportunity to make decisions in all those functions which all the member countries has to implement. During the 15 years of our integration, starting from the Commission of Custom Union, we made more than 10,000 decisions, and all of those decisions were made unanimously. The consensus is the basic principle of decision-making in the Eurasian Economic Union as well as in ASEAN. The rule of international law should be respected. The integration is mutually beneficial, and we see that during the last 10 years, the share of integration in the economic growth differs in member states of our union from 1% like Russian Federation to 6% for Armenia. So the importance of integration for economic growth is measurable, and all the processes of integration are done on the basis of mutual benefits, transparency, and of course on the pure voluntary basis. These principles of international cooperation is the basis for the activity between our countries. And it is a good example for creation of the large Eurasian partnership, which was initiated by the Russian President, Mr. Putin. And I think that the common activity between Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN could contribute a lot to the creation of this, to implementation of this idea and creation of the Eurasian Economic Partnership. The common values are very important, and in spite of the fact that we are a pure economic organization, nevertheless, we are trying to organize our internal labor market, to make efforts to harmonize education of professionals, especially higher education. The common cultural roots are also very important, and this common values is a good platform for the further integration development, both in ASEAN and in Eurasian Economic Union. Let me give you short information about our history and the present situation. The Eurasian integration started immediately after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And from the very beginning, we maintained the free trade arrangements and the plans to construct custom union were in place from the very beginning of the 90s, but it took some time to create Eurasian Economic Community in the year 2000, because not all the former Soviet Republic have the similar interest for integration. And there were some efforts from different perspectives. Finally, 3 countries, Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan, created the custom union. We eliminated the custom borders. 2 other countries joined, Armenia and Kyrgyzia, joined soon the custom union, and we created the Eurasian Economic Union, which is successfully developing during the last 10 years. Speaking about the state of the art, please, the next slide. You can see that nowadays, next slide, please. No, before, the previous one. Do we have some data? We should have the slide with data before. Yes, this one. Let me tell you some brief information about the state of the art today. At the moment, the population of the Eurasian Economic Union is about 200 million people, and we produce about 3.6% of the world industrial production. We are self-sufficient in food security. We are leaders in production and export of a lot of commodities. And of course, we have the largest space. So we have a lot of opportunities for development, and till now, there are no any objective bottlenecks for our development. We see the opportunities for the economic growth about 6-7% per year. And some of our countries, member states, already have such economic growth. And I think if you combine competitive advantages of our economies, Eurasian countries and ASEAN countries, you can find new opportunities for growth. As for our organizational structure, it is noteworthy to mention that we have the supranational body, Eurasian Economic Commission, which make decisions on those functions which are listed here. This, as I mentioned, trade regulation, custom tariff, and custom code, the adoption of technical regulation documents, sanitary and veterinary measures, the harmonization of industrial and agricultural policy, of anti-monopoly policy, the government procurements, and some other issues where we have opportunity to make common decisions. We report these results of our work to the Council of Eurasian Economic Commission, which consists from the representatives of the national governments on the level of the vice chairman of the governments. And at the top, we have the Supreme Eurasian Economic Council and Eurasian Intergovernment Council, which consists from the heads of the states and the heads of the governments. Such flexible structure gives us opportunity to discuss and to implement all necessary decisions to solve all the problems of integration and to promote the sustainable development. Let me tell you a little bit more about our functions. The integration includes 4 freedoms, which is classical one, the free trade with goods, services, free flow of capital, and common labor market. Historically, unification of custom tariff regulation and custom procedures regulation was the first step for the creation of our Eurasian Economic Union. Now we don't have custom borders inside. we implement the unified custom tariff with some exceptions, and we have universal foreign trade regulation for all our countries, which give opportunity for our companies to use the whole economic space for their activity. All trade with other countries becomes the issue of our common regulation. We have tariff preferences. You know that in ASEAN region we have the free trade arrangement with Vietnam, with Singapore concerning the trade of goods. We started negotiation of free trade agreement with Indonesia. And I think that in nearest future we shall continue step by step to create the large free trade economic zone between our regional organizations. We provide a system of tariff preferences for a number of countries, including some Asian countries. And of course, we are working together with our partners, and we discussed this with ASEAN member countries, the procedures of improvement in custom regulation, the digitalization of custom regulation. We implement the electronic trade and do this in cooperation with our major partners. As I mentioned, we have the unified technical regulation. We adopted already about 40 technical regulations, which covers about 80% of products in the union's market. Also, the sphere of sanitary, veterinary, and phytosanitary measures is unified, and we use the unified norms here. So from the very beginning, we had the plans to create the common financial market and introduce the free movement of capital. We harmonize legislation in the financial sphere, determining the direction for the integrated national payment systems, and liberalizing currency legislation is being carried out. What is very important to mention that we switched to the national currencies in our internal trade. More than 80% of transactions in our internal market are done in national currencies. This is a very important step for functioning of our common financial market. We also are trying to create the common financial infrastructure, which will be interesting for ASEAN countries as well. For instance, the Russian Central Bank is offering its own payment systems and its own information system for the exchange of bank information, which can substitute SWIFT, which we couldn't use. And I am sure that ASEAN countries can use this infrastructure as well to trade with Eurasian Economic Union countries in national currencies. It is safe, it is modern, it is transparent, and there are no obstacles why not to use the instruments, our own instruments, to share interbank information, to make payments in national currencies, which will be safe from any interference from other countries. The high level of integration within the Eurasian Economic Union also implies coordination of policies in the key economic areas. There are a number of sensitive areas that remain under national regulation. It consists, first of all, energy markets. Till the end of the next year, we are planning to launch the full-fledged common electric power market and to move to the common market of oil and gas. These markets are also very interesting to the ASEAN member countries, which imports oil and gas products from our market. And as I mentioned, we shall have the common market and energy market regulation, which will help our companies to trade with each other. It is also important to mention a creation of common pharmaceutical market. It is not easy issue to unify the regulation for medicine. Nevertheless, we started this work 5 years ago, and now we have the single market of pharmaceutical products, which is over than $10 billion. Significant progress has been achieved in ensuring the free movement of services. This is one of the fastest growing sectors of the economy. Today, over 50 services sectors operate in the common market format. More than 60% of services provided are settled under the rules of the common market. In the field of industrial policy, we are moving to a practical mechanism for its implementation by creating Eurasian technological platform. These platforms could be interesting subject for cooperation to the ASEAN countries. They include companies, research institutes, design bureaus, which are interested in the mutual work in research and development, in construction of new technologies, doing the joint innovation projects, and they're open for the participation to ASEAN countries. Eurasian Economic Union approved such platforms in such areas as space, medicine, natural resources, ecology, and in large spectrum of machine building industries. Very important part of our work is agricultural and agro-industrial market. As I mentioned, we already reached self-sufficiency in more than 90% of basic food products. Perhaps only tropical fruits we couldn't produce, and this is a good opportunity to import them from ASEAN countries. A very important issue is the labor market. The citizens of the Eurasian Economic Union countries give opportunity to work free in the single market, and it creates more opportunities for our citizens to find a good work, to realize themselves in creativity spheres. This opportunity to have the single labor market give additional opportunities for growth. It is a very important factor of economic growth, the free movement of our citizens between our countries to find jobs which will be give them opportunity to have a good salaries, and at the same time to help our economies to optimize their labor structure. We discussed together with ASEAN Secretariat the digital technologies implementation. We are working hard in this sphere. Our countries are integrated in special integrative information system which offer the channels of information necessary for regulation of trade and economic cooperation. We introduced several digital projects, including the projects for labor market, for transportation, so-called digital transportation corridors, for electronic trade, for custom regulation. All these spheres are digitalized in Eurasian Economic Union, and our partners can use these modern technologies. We conducted a joint study with the World Bank concerning the implementation of the digital agenda, and According to this study, we expect that till the year 2025, we shall get 1 million new jobs in this sphere. And the implementation of digital agenda is expected to increase our GDP about more than 10% of the total expected growth. It could accelerate our growth and increase the integration effects. One of the key objectives of our work is elimination of exemptions in the internal market. This is, I should say, routine work, which is very well known in ASEAN region. I think we are very close to have the common economic space without any exceptions. I would like to add that economic measures adopted in the Union as a part of implementation of economic freedoms and provision of unified, common and coordinated economic policy allowed the economics of the Union member states to achieve relatively good socio-economic indicators. Please pay attention to this table. You see the indicators of growth of GDP, of manufacturing, of agricultural production, the decline of unemployment, and of course the growth of mutual trade, which is the major indicator of our integration efforts. All this confirms the fact that business clearly and on practice sees all the advantages of the single Eurasian Economic Union market, because everything we do within the Union, we discuss beforehand with business circles, with our partners abroad, trying to optimize our internal and external trade regulation. We shall continue our dialogue and we invite our business representatives for our agenda, for the discussions. Yesterday we had the roundtable here where the business representatives take active part. And of course what we are doing as regulators, we create opportunities for economic growth, for the entrepreneurial activity, for cooperation, both internal and external cooperation, including the ASEAN countries. We consider the ASEAN countries as one of the major partners, and of course we think that our business council will work more actively. Finally, I'd like to say a few words about our strategic planning documents. We're supposed to discuss our strategic plans with ASEAN in the next few years to share our understanding of the world economic changes, to find new opportunities for growth. And just now, we are developing Eurasian Economic Union according to the strategy for economic integration development until the year 2025. This strategy covers all our functions and systemize our work in 11 system blocks. You see, these blocks includes both our routines agenda as well as such new spheres as scientific and technological cooperation, healthcare, education, tourism, digitalization, economic development, and so forth. This year, we are programming Union's international strategy until year 2030 and the period until 2045. This fact emphasizes the fundamental nature of the choice in favor of integration of our region. The goal till the year 2045 is to transform the Eurasian Economic Union into a macro region which would be self-sufficient, harmoniously developed, and attractive for all countries of the world, possessing economic, technological, and intellectual leadership, and maintaining a high level of well-being of the population of the member states. As you see, the Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN have a lot of points for convergence. in the strategic views in our day-by-day cooperation between our companies, between our governments, and I'm sure that today's meeting will help us to understand each other more, to find new opportunities for growth, for mutual advantages of combination of our competitive advantages and opportunities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you greatly, Your Excellency, for this wonderful overview of Eurasian Economic Union policies. I'm not, for example, a specialist on Eurasian Economic Union, mostly on ASEAN, but as I can see from this perspective, as ministers presented now, more goals and values from ASEAN and Eurasian Economic Union are common, and we're sharing common values, we're sharing common directions of our development, as I can see from this academic perspective, maybe. And here you will find the same words, you will find the same spheres of cooperation in the ASEAN strategic documents, and it's really important now because maybe I can say that or not, but not all integrations, regional integrations in the world are as successful as ASEAN or Eurasian Economic Union, which is demonstrating the growth, the stability, and the principle of consensus and decision making. This is more important for our cooperation now because we have a common basis in our decision making process. And next, I would like to invite for our discussion Mr. Alexander Chandra, Assistant Director, Head of Analysis and Monitoring on Trade, Industry and Emerging Issues Division, ASEAN Economic Community Department. Please, Mr. Alexander, share your views on ASEAN approaches to that development and our common ground to cooperate. Please welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kuklin and Excellency Minister. Welcome to the delegates from the member states of the EAEU to the ASEAN headquarters. Good afternoon, fellow speakers as well. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you, to present to you ASEAN economic agenda now and the post-2025. Maybe you can go to the next slides. Just to start with, let me just share with you some of the key updates, progress of ASEAN economic integration, our economic performance in terms of trade and as well as investment. Generally, as you're probably aware of already, we already have a steady economic growth of around 5%, and this is expected for ASEAN over the medium term moving forward. Amidst notwithstanding of the modest global growth, ASEAN economy relatively has been robust, and the growth is forecasted to be 4.6% this year and 4.8% in 2024. And this is mainly bolstered by strong domestic demand as well as recovery in the services sector. The region has also been recording a peak level of trade and investment in last year in 2022, with trade reaching $3.8 trillion and our foreign direct investment inflows went as high as $224.2 billion. With regard to our trade, despite the fact, despite some concern about, a lot of people raise question about intra-ASEAN trade. Intra-ASEAN trades turns out has continued to be the largest component of ASEAN trade. It accounts for about 22.3% of total merchandise trade, and the second largest in terms of FDI, with about 12.3%. More importantly is that the proportion of ASEAN share to global FDI continues to increase from only 6% in 2015 to more than 17% in 2022. In trade, we also continue to be the hub for global trade, and this is indicated almost doubling extra trade from $1.7 trillion in 2015 to more recently in 2022 to $3.0 trillion US dollar. Next slide, please. So this is how our economic integration has been guided by. Essentially, as many of you already aware of already, we have what we call the ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint 2025 that runs from 2016. So we are in the 8th year of the implementation, and we only have 2 years left before its completion. Essentially, the AEC Blueprint 2025 was built based on the development inspired by the previous blueprint, the AEC Blueprint 2015, and that also took into account the development and trends at the time, as well as with the ambition of continuing ASEAN economic integration agenda and ambition. The existing blueprint, as I mentioned earlier on, runs over 10 years period, and the implementation of this blueprint is supported by what we call as the strategic action or work plans. So different sectoral bodies would have in ASEAN would have individual work plans to advance the goals that has been put in place in the ASEAN economic blueprint. What is important in the existing blueprint, unlike the previous blueprint, is that we embed the stronger monitoring and review process to make sure that our integration is well balanced and well in check. Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is how the AEC Blueprint 2025 looks like. I'm sure many of you are already aware of already. So basically, it is designed, built around 5 key elements of our intention to become a highly integrated and cohesive economy, for ASEAN to be a more competitive, innovative, and dynamic. Our intention to enhance sectoral connectivity and integration, and the intention of the ASEAN Economic Community to be more resilient, more inclusive, to take into account the interests of the citizens, the consumers, and so on. And last but not least is our ambition to put ASEAN in various important economic fora at the global level. Next slide, please. So this is the progress of the AEC the AEC ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint 2025 implementation. So as of December 2022 last year, so out of a total of 2,494 action lines, so I mentioned to you each sectoral body has a different work plans and everything. So all those work plans put together, we have like 2,494 action line. So 1,300 of them, or 54%, have been completed, and 905 or 37.6% in progress, and the remaining 203 or 8.4% is for implementation between now until 2025. Next slide, please. This is just to show some of the key deliverable based on the different key elements, key characteristics that I have shared before that make up the existing blueprint. So with regard to our ambition to deepen our regional and global market integration, we have put in place various initiatives. Key of them, there are so many of them, but these are just like some highlights. But I'm sure you are all familiar with the ASEAN effort to drive and lead the process to conclude the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, one of the largest FTA in the world, and also our ongoing effort to upgrade, to improve our free trade agreements, be it internal or external, to make it more modern, forward-looking, and more agile, as well as more adaptable in facing existing and future challenges. Next slide, please. So this is the some of the key areas that we have put in place to advance, to deepen our sectoral connectivity and integration. A lot of work around like promoting our agricultural sector. Many of the work in the agricultural sector now actually taking into account the importance of sustainability, tourism as well, also in terms of transport connectivity. I think key of the, one of the most recent key outcome would be the ASEAN-EU Comprehensive Agreement on transport agreement. So, next please. Now, last but not least is our engagement with the private sector and the wider stakeholders. Now, ASEAN, we are aware that ASEAN in the past used to be criticized for being very elitist and stuff like that. But I think under the current blueprint, the way we implement our current blueprint is another story. So gone are the days when ASEAN policymakers make policies themselves. A lot of it actually, we consulted with our stakeholder and so on, and the frequencies of the engagement between ASEAN policymakers and stakeholders are increasing, particularly with regard to the AEC would be with private sector. Also, not only the number of, not only the frequency, but also the quality of the engagement itself. So we do a lot of regular consultation, and also there are more access between private sector to different desks in ASEAN Secretariat for them to be able to actually inquire information, to address grievances and so on and so forth. And also lastly, also with wider stakeholders. So we are not only engaging with our private sector, but also increasingly with other non-state actors, such as civil society groups, non-governmental organizations, and so on. Next, please. Now, I think increasingly ASEAN economic integration is not only working on our traditional issues like trade in goods, trade in services. They are all moving ahead as planned, but increasingly because of the dynamic changes that happen all over the world, we also have to be agile in terms of actually being able to adapt to addressing new and emerging issues. So we have put in place a number of initiatives there are a lot of emerging and new emerging issues, but ASEAN so far has chosen two key initiatives, two key priority areas. Those are in the area of digital transformation and the fourth industrial revolution, and the second on the sustainability issues. On the digital transformation, you know that we have the consolidated strategy on the fourth industrial revolution already put in place, and more importantly, ASEAN has already launched the plan to actually start negotiation of the digital economy framework agreement. So the first round of negotiation will take place in 2 weeks' time, at the beginning of December. And we expect that by 2025, at least we will have a substantial conclusion of that agreement. So this is quite an ambitious move. If we are able to materialize it, it will likely to be the first region-wide digital economy agreement of its kind. So, next slide, please. Next slide. So next slide, please. So we come actually now almost done. I'm almost done. So just to inform you that, as I mentioned before, the existing blueprint is nearing its completion by 2025. So what happened is that we are already now working to develop our ASEAN Community Vision 2045. So the process is already put in place. And also ASEAN leaders have recently noted the finalized draft of the Vision 2045 with a tagline of resilient, innovative, dynamic, people-centered ASEAN. The finalized draft comprised, among others, of economic section, which will be developed by the high-level task force on ASEAN economic integration. So along with the ASEAN Community Vision, different pillars, different ASEAN economic, different pillar of ASEAN cooperation will develop their own strategic plan, similar to that what we have now as a blueprint. Of course, in development of the ASEAN Community Post-2025 initiative, we are already pursuing a lot of engagement with our stakeholder. In fact, just today, we launched this survey to get inputs from our stakeholders, both internal within ASEAN and also beyond. So please visit ASEAN Secretariat website later today and do fill in that survey. So to enable us to inform our planning for the post 2025. I think I will leave it at that. Speaking already quite long. So thank you again for listening. Happy to answer any question you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Alexander Chandra. And as you can see, as we previously mentioned, many of points of the presentation of Mr. Alexander coincides with His Excellency Minister presentation. Here, as we have a common ground, and I already highlighted that issue. And another interesting thing, and many people say, what's the main power of ASEAN here as an international organization, regional integration? And many people say, oh, you know, it's consensus, it's value-based here. And I will add that one of the main powers of ASEAN is to stick to the plan, is to adopt a plan and to stick it properly without any inclinations, without any other directions. And it's really impressive that there are many strategies and new concepts, new ideas within ASEAN communities. And another vector is a social vector, which is really reflecting the social justice tradition, attention to social issues by ASEAN, which is also very impressive in the economic sphere. Thank you so much, Mr. Alexander Chandra. These were two keynote speeches from both sides, from the Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN, as we can compare the two approaches of the organizations to our general agenda. And then we'll go to our speakers from different parts of our academic community. Some of them are representing governmental organizations, businesses, civil society organizations, and the majority of our today's guests are representatives of the expert community of Indonesia and our colleagues from Eurasian countries, so also online. And I would like to pass the floor to Mr. Fedor Chernitsyn, Vice Secretary of the Deputy Prime Minister of the Russian Federation. Please, Mr. Chernitsyn, share your perspective on the agenda we're discussing today.
Thank you so much, Nikita. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please accept my greetings from the north of Eurasia, and let me share some ideas, visions, and proposals with you. You know, the world is going through a huge transition now. The president of Russia, at a meeting of the Valdai Club in October this year, noted that we live in an era of the breakdown of the world order, when there are qualitative changes that require a fundamental shift of the very principles of international relations. The president of China, during his visit to Moscow in March this year, said that we're talking about changes that have not happened for 100 years. Deglobalization, reconfiguration of world markets, the fourth industrial revolution and the move to a new technological mode, the climate agenda in conditions of limited critical resources, encourage the nations to find their place in a new system which is being formed right now. Indeed, those who are used to sitting at first-row seats do not want to lose it. But there's a lot of people from developing countries who have grown up and can no longer be satisfied with the role of servant at the entrance to the so-called first world. The West is slowly losing its competitiveness. This is the end of their cycle of dominance. In Russian, I'm calling it Zakat Zapada, which is translated as the demise of the West. You know, it's amazing that in Old Russian, the words Zakat, which means sunset and the decline, and Zapad, which means the West, have the same root and one common meaning. The global center of the world economic activity is in Eurasia already. However, these challenges cannot be overcome alone. Therefore, we have the process of formation of integration organizations of countries with their own technological standards and platforms, financial instruments, resource base, common identity, and philosophy of development. The EAEU and ASEAN are among such organizations, and both have a vision for the future and good prospects to embody it. That's what unites us first of all. What is the EAEU? I think that since you came to our conference, you already know something about us. And I brought you some new facts and figures about us, which are presented in this booklet. And I really admired the situation before this round table when I were looking at you, reading very carefully and attentively the booklet. Thank you very much for your attention. The EU is really one of the leading international organizations in the world in terms of the depth of economic integration achieved. Within the framework of the Eurasian Economic Union, we already have a unified customs regulation, single customs tariff, single system of technical regulation, single regime of foreign trade, free movement of goods on the domestic market without customs, transport, and sanitary control. We have a common labor market as we don't apply quotas and work permits. We recognize each other's diplomas and educational certificates. And we provided for the implementation of pension rights acquired while working on the territories of any member state. We apply a national tax regime for individuals of one member state working on the territory of another member state. There is a single market of services which is being formed. The free movement of capitals is ensured through the harmonization of legislation. And we have a strategic vision. The EAEU member states prepare a declaration on further development of economic processes in the Eurasian Economic Union until 2030 and 2045, whom we call the Eurasian Economic Path. We set ourselves the task by 2030 to ensure the free movement of goods, services, finances, and human resources in the common market, which will be carried out in a comfortable environment for people, formed on the basis of harmonization of approaches to the development of education, science, and healthcare. Our objective by 2045 is to achieve the transformation of the Eurasian Economic Union into a self-sufficient, safe, harmoniously developed and attractive macro-region of the multipolar world, which takes economic, technological, and intellectual leadership and maintains a high level of welfare for the people of its member states. We have a huge resource and production base for this. We hold an area of 20 million square kilometers. This is 1/7 of the global land surface. We hold the first place in oil production, the second place in production of natural gas and mineral fertilizers, the third place in production of wheat, potato, and livestock, the third place in length of railways, and the fourth place in length of motorways. We specially brought this booklet, on this to you, and you can read more when you have time. But in general, we have a serious material base and good experience and integration and building partnerships based on equality and consensus. This experience can be useful for ASEAN. At the same time, the territory of the Eurasian Economic Union exceeds the territory of ASEAN by almost 5 times, whereas the population of ASEAN exceeds the population of the EAEU by almost 5 times too. The total GDP of our organizations is not much different, but the turnover of ASEAN's foreign trade is much larger than the EAEU. Hence, we can conclude about the effectiveness of your system of foreign economic relations. That is, we have a lot to learn from you too. And we are already doing it. We exchange experience and get to know each other better. We have the Russia-ASEAN summits. We have the EAEU-ASEAN dialogue. We have memorandums, declarations, any kinds of joint events like today where we're discussing our great potential. But what to do next? I think it's time to embody this potential, and we propose to do it together by trading more actively and forming technological alliances. I offer to look at 6 pillars of further cooperation. The first pillar is trade. As for trade, we need good analytical work and revision of where we are now, as well as new proposals for the extension of the free trade regime. Negotiations on free trade area with Indonesia are currently underway, and I'm sure that we should see who else is interested in moving in this direction among our countries. There are also ideas about the global EAEU-ASEAN free trade area, which are also worth refreshing and looking at them in terms of the changing situation in global economy. The second pillar is communication and business dialogue. In terms of exchanging experience and getting to know each other better, the EAEU has the observer state status. This status does not impose any obligation on the country, except for one thing, just to refrain from public criticism of the Eurasian Economic Union. But it provides a whole package of rights. Participation in events at the level of presidents, prime ministers, and vice prime ministers, plus the opportunity to appoint a representative of the observer state to the Eurasian Economic Commission, who can work in the EEC headquarters or at home to request and to receive working documents of the Union. This format allows to see with your own eyes the processes that take place within the Eurasian Economic Union, including the very decision making. And of course, this is a good and sustainable platform for dialogue with all the EAEU member states. In any case, the intensification of dialogue, more summits and forums, more delegation exchange, more experts and business persons visiting each other. This is what needs to be done today. The communication is the basis of interhuman interaction, so we definitely need to communicate more. Just yesterday, I discussed with the ASEAN chairmanship the prospect to organize a business mission of ASEAN member states to the Eurasian Economic Union. I think this is exactly what we need to do, and this is the right way for us. We need much more human and business contacts. Our civilization spaces must be more interlinked and fastened together. The third pillar is technology. The most important thing is our potential for technological cooperation and formation of a technological alliance. Look at the numbers. We have 8 billion people in the world. The West is 1 billion, which profited greatly from the previous centuries of colonialism. First, it was direct colonialism, and Asia has a good knowledge of it. Then, from technological colonialism. All the talk about global technologies for everyone is no longer valid. Once you have a sanction imposed on you, once you face a world where someone decides who will have the technology and who will not have the technology, all this becomes just idle talk. So we have 7 billion people who should be technologically free to do what they need to do to ensure their own safety, technology base, which would be independent from the Western technological space. In Russia and Indonesia, which hold our today's meeting, we understand the word sovereignty and we know its value. The most active anti-colonial movements were formed in Asia. Prominent leaders of the national liberation struggle appeared, such as Sukarno or Mahathir Mohamad, who formulated the concept of an independent path of the global South and global East. This philosophy of development corresponds very well with the ideas of Eurasianism, which underline the concept of sovereign sustainable development of the state of Middle and Northern Eurasia. The EAEU and ASEAN countries are the countries who understand very well the issue of sovereignty and never quarreled among themselves. We don't have any disputes with each other. So we have the background to lead and to show an example of perfect technological partnership, perfect political partnership, in order to build a world which will be fair, more safe and stable, and focused on the needs of people who will live much more in harmony with the nature. As a global majority, the Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN member states, certainly with many other countries, have a mission of ensuring the technological sovereignty. This corresponds very well with today's reality because we are entering the new era. We have new technological cycle unfolding. In previous times, it used to be once in 300, 500 years. Since from the 19th century, it's about once in 100 years that we happen to have fundamental changes of technology which revolutionize the way we live, our lifestyle, and the very perception of the world. This world will be different, and the next couple of decades will be crucial in defining how the new world will look like in terms of technologies, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of alliances. Somebody has to lead. Somebody has to take care and to take charge of it. So let us think of writing the rules for smart cities, for example. Very soon, in few short decades, every city in the earth will be smart. But every city must be secure, and if we have a hodgepodge of different approaches to this, we will not achieve this. The EU and ASEAN member states can write new standards for smart cities. We can lay the foundation of more fair, more effective financial systems in the world, which everybody expects actually us to do. If you look at technology space, what the US is offering, those are legacy systems that they built for the whole world, thinking that those systems will help them to dominate technology space. And those are great companies like Microsoft, Google, which establish their very strong systems. The same in consultancy, which sells the information, ideas, and things like this. What we understand is that no services are no longer global. They can be discontinued for political reasons for some countries like Russia. We cannot rely on them anymore. And we cannot buy something which is a black box, which is given to you and you don't have access to how it's working and who is using those services. And are you aware of other people who are actually having a backdoor to your services, to your government, to your business? The only solution for this is to build a new system by ourselves in partnership. When we open the code, when we build systems together, when it's no longer a black box, but a cooperative enterprise, then we can trust each other and ensure that whatever is built is for everyone, and nobody has the right to disconnect it or to use it to gain some political advantage. The fourth pillar is finance. Forming a technological alliance and achieving technological sovereignty will require building a stable financial system without using the US dollar as a universal means of payment. Within the Eurasian Economic Union, we have already made the transition to mutual settlements in national currencies, the share of which reached 90% this year. We are also working on expanding the use of our own payment systems, and obviously this is another agenda item for the development of the EAEU-ASEAN partnerships. The fifth pillar is connectivity. A lot of words has been said yesterday about this. This is the maintenance of logistics connectivity in the world through the development of transport corridors. Outstanding thinkers of our country called our region of Middle Eurasia the land ocean, and this is the case. Let me remind you that the EAEU ranks the third length of railways and the fourth length of motorways in the world. We are not stopping here. We are building new transport corridors such as the North-South, which bring our countries to the densely populated and promising markets of the global South. We are stitching together the economic spaces of the North and South of Eurasia. The countries of Northern Eurasia, including Russia, are taking root in the South. So let's grow this world tree together. There is, by the way, scientific evidence that the tradition of tree worship, the very myth of the world tree, originates actually from Indonesia, where this story began about 8,000 years ago with the rise of the world ocean level. After the idea of the world, after this, the idea of the world tree reached China, then it came to India and Iran, from where, through the peoples of the Eurasian civilization, such as Slavs, Finno-Ugrians, Turks, it went further north and reached Europe, Northern Europe, Scandinavia. The time has come for the EAEU and ASEAN countries to build this world tree together in reality, in the form of branches of the North-South transport corridor. And the sixth pillar is culture. I touched upon the topic of how one world civilization enriched another, that all human cultures are interconnected, and this dialogue of culture and civilizations has been going on since the very beginning of time. At present, our countries, despite our geographical remoteness, are connected by cultural proximity. Our common cognitive model is based on fundamental traditional values, such as a strong family, creative work, the priority of spirit over matter, love, mercy, justice, mutual respect, historical memory, and the continuity of generations. The civilizations of Middle Eurasia and Southeast Asia have always had a common value, the value of knowledge. Thus, the sixth pillar in our common agenda is intercultural dialogue and the protection of traditional human values with mutual respect and equality of cultures. Our people have never destroyed foreign cultures, as the West did. Our philosophy of development has always been based on interaction and integration, religious tolerance, multi-confessional inclusivity. This is how modern Russia was formed, where more than 200 peoples from various origins have been living together. The Middle Eurasia is the ark of peoples.
I'm sorry, speaker, 1 minute, please. Your conclusions.
And our doors are open for a dialogue of cultures. You know, the language plays a very big role in this cultural dialogue. And this is why I want to tell you about the decision of the presidents of the EEU and Commonwealth of Independent States Presidents to open and to establish the International Organization for Russian Language. This organization is open to all countries where they have interest, love, and wish to use Russian and Russian-speaking culture. So I invite all partners from ASEAN to take a closer look at this work. However, the development of artificial intelligence system, I think, will soon solve all translation troubles, and we will be able to speak our national languages and have a good simultaneous machine translation. So that is, the translation is no more a place where we can get lost. But the language stays a key to the soul. By studying each other's languages, by interacting in culture, including the production of joint media products such as films, songs, TikTok videos, anything, by all these means, will we be capable to conjugate and to match the spaces of the global north and the global south. These 6 pillars, which are trade, communication, technology, finance, connectivity, and culture, lay the foundation for new rules that the world will have to write in the near future. You know, we need to write these new rules, and nobody else will write them if we don't do it. A number of powers, and EAEU and ASEAN among them, should agree a new set of rules on the basis of real equality and real understanding and respect of each other's interests. If we offer to each other and to the world a working model how the countries can together build systems and standards, principles of fair trade, and common space of technological cooperation, everybody else will see that this is working, that you can have a world without somebody imposing the rules to others as it happens now. I believe that the EU and ASEAN have a huge responsibility in making sure that this system works. You know, the West will keep working the way it's working. First of all, it's always working for its own interest, as ever. It's a policy, you see it everywhere, to divide and conquer. But its time's gone. Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Russia, and other member states are no longer the countries which take orders from everyone. What we need to do is to keep the dialogue among ourselves and to start preparing the new agenda, which will be more appropriate for everyone. This new reality will be respected, but we should rise up to that reality and actively focus on 6 pillars of cooperation, which I have just spoken of. The future of our nations and organizations is to lead and not to follow. We have all facilities and resources for it. The question is whether we have the vision and the will. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Chernitsyn, thank you so much for such a flammable and inspiring speech and reflecting to our ASEAN members the values of Eurasian Economic Union, Eurasian civilization, and our cultures of our region, which is really important for the dialogue, and that's what, as a representative of academic community, as I usually highlighting and continuing the idea by Mr. Chernitsyn, that we should exchange the knowledge about each other, about our cultures, about our languages, and we should expand the attention to our cultures, to our academic research in our countries about each other, and in different areas, not only economics, but in politics too, in culture, in history, and we should know each other. In the epoch, in the era of global internet connection, in the era of global information which is accessible to everyone, we should know each other better, yeah, because all information is accessible, wonderful articles, wonderful books, as we should know each other, yeah, and that's a very important idea of this, to overcome stereotyping between each other, to overcome maybe some of the lack of knowledge, lack of information, and it will boost our cooperation more. Thank you for that presentation. And I kindly remind speakers that we have a time limit for 7 minutes here for our next speeches, our next presentations. It will be my pleasure greatly to take all day for our discussion, as I'm mostly as Indonesian studies researcher. I'm accustomed to mostly to a wonderful long discussion without any interruption here as an Indonesian tradition and wonderful tradition. But as today we have a time limit, and I'm sorry for that, but I would like to develop these ideas by previous speakers and kindly invite Dr. Kony Rahakundini Bakri, Professor of General Ahmad University, with her approach and her vision of our discussion today. Dr. Kony, please, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. I think just put that that slide and don't move anything because I just want to make my speech on 5 minutes. Okay. I like to underline what Mr. Fyodor just said because I joined Valdai Club and the important message of President Putin during the 20th Valdai discussion meeting in Sochi is really underlining the importance of building the new concept and system of the balanced world, which is like balancing the 1 billion people toward the 7 billion people, vice versa. So talking about that, then we are going to talk about the key issue to identify common goals and areas of mutual benefit for both regions and how to establish the framework for cooperation that respect the diversity of economic, the cultures, the technology, the political systems, the industries, how between the EAEU and ASEAN. And I think, and I believe that communications, mutual respect, commitment to finding win-win solutions is a very crucial for fostering and a strong and enduring relationship between these two regional blocs. But let's talk about the 2 or 3 challenges to be addressed. I think first we have the challenges of geographical distance. And the geographical distance between the 2 regions poses logistical challenges for trade, for collaborations, may require the improved transportation and logistic infrastructures. The second one is diverse economic and policies, which is variation in economic structures, priorities among members countries, and this could complicate effort to harmonize regulation and trade factors. The third one is competing interests between other regional or global economics or global power that influence both blocs. I think the most important things that we have to underline the connectivity prospect between trans-ASEAN railway networks, especially first the railway network, second one is the maritime networks. Because if you see from the connectivity on the trans-ASEAN railway network, is actually Russia is joining to Mongolia, China going down to ASEAN countries into Jakarta. As we know, we have now going to build our new capital. Then we have to think about how to extend from maybe Singapore directly to Kalimantan. Okay, our prospect of strengthening that we have, I think, on the trade and investment, infrastructure and development, and technology and innovation. I like to underline that because I think sharing technological advancement and fostering innovation through partnership in R&D could be benefit on our industries on both regions. And of course, the people-to-people exchange relations. I'm not going to underline what is that, but again, people-to-people exchange is very important, academic-to-academic exchange as well. Since my background is defense and security, then let me talk about the defense security related issue, which could be complicated, but getting started doesn't have to be complicated. I have over 5 key areas. One is establish mechanism for sharing intelligence and information and security threat, including terrorism, including transnational crime. The second is develop joint strategic and initiative to counter terrorism, extremism, and insurgency by conducting joint military exercise or military cooperations. Number 3 is joint effort in cybersecurity training, in technology development and sharing expertise could be benefits for both region, for both blocs. Number 4 is cooperation in training, resource sharing, and joint exercise for disaster relief operations. And the 5th one is, I think, the explore opportunity for collaboration in the defense and military industry. The EAEU strength in the military industry is very clear, especially for Russia. With a strong legacy in developing advanced military technology, EAEU countries have expertise in area of aircraft, missile systems, armored vehicles, and naval technology. And as we know, during Jokowi presidency, we really want to go to the global maritime fulcrum positions. Of course, we need to develop our military now into outward-looking military instead of the inward-looking one. EAEU countries possess a well-established defense industry with experience in manufacturing various military equipment. And you have to invest in significantly defense R&D. Collaborating with ASEAN countries could lead to the joint R&D. And this one could be on R&D project, technology transfer, innovation in military equipments. The 4th one, your countries might be open to establishing joint venture or partnership in the defense sectors. And your blocs could afford training program and skill development in various aspects of military technology, manufacturing, and the most important thing is because we just miss our, we just have accidents of our Air Force plan. That I think the most important thing that we can cooperate on the maintenance and operation as well. Collaboration with EAEU countries could provide access to their market for Indonesia defense industry product as well. So there's another key avenue to strengthen ties between these regions. First, reducing trade barriers and a tariff to promote increased economic operations. Second, improving transportation network, building energy corridors, and expanding digital infrastructure. Third one is sharing technological advancement and expertise in renewable energy, information technology, biotechnology, and nuclear energy. And fifth, of course, the people-to-people or academic exchange, like I said before, aligning policies, regulation, and standard in areas of trade, investment, intellectual property right is very important. And engage in regular diplomatic dialogue forum to discuss mutual interests, address concerns, and identify opportunities. And the last one, I think, address environmental challenge collectively, because this one is very important. If you see the white paper of France, it's quite scary because now France is going to deploy the military operation other than war into our regions, and it means like deploying their military full in the name of environmental security. That's why I think environmental is very important. So I like to make a very short summary. Both the EAEU and ASEAN have opportunity to strengthen unity and focusing on economic, technology, industry collaborations, infrastructure development, cultural exchange, and resolving internal conflict through dialogue and consensus building. And this opportunity could lead to a more integrated and cohesive framework within each bloc, which is, of course, is going to foster great cooperations. It's important to note, because I really underline about the military and defense industry, that partnership in defense industry often involve sensitive technology and consideration regarding national security. So building trust, establishing mutually beneficial agreement, and ensuring technology transfer and agreement will be a critical in fostering successful military industry cooperations between the EAEU and ASEAN, particularly Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you greatly, Dr. Koni, for adding the security element to our agenda here. That's really important sometimes because we live in a world of complexity and many of its spheres are interdependent now, as we can see, and we can't avoid, even if we have a structure of our two organizations, Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN, which are mostly economic or political organizations, not a security or military, but we have, for example, in ASEAN, mechanisms of a security discussion on the issues of security, and there are many of it. And there is a big perspective for that issue, maybe in case of a growing instability in the world. But military cooperation is not in a way of developing arms or something, but in developing security mechanisms which are based on diplomacy, negotiation, which are based on approaches of our common values, of our values of consensus towards the security sphere and our answer to common challenges. Thank you so much, Dr. Koni, and I kindly invite to develop this discussion Dr. Fajar Hirawan from CSIS Indonesia, Head of Department of Economics, a representative of one of the leading international relations think tanks in Indonesia. Dr. Fajar, you're welcome, please.
Thank you, Dr. Kuklin, His Excellency, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I just want to add, several things related to the issues on how to strengthen the ASEAN and the EAEU strategic partnership. I'm going to start with the, with the issues of the current trends in the international economic environments, and I can say that it mainly concerns on the disruptive technologies, demographic changes, and also the issues of the environmental, social, and governance. And I also want to highlight, the current global governance and cooperations that mainly dealing with the issues of domestic and national interests, because now we know that most of the countries focus on how to fulfill their domestic demand, like the inward looking, especially post-pandemic crisis, and also the increasing tensions. We are talking about two big countries like the US and also China, and also the most important things that the issues of the lack of trust and also the insufficient mechanism. perhaps, like if we want to, make sure that the ASEAN and EAEU could, like make a substantial movement on how to at least fix the issues of the current global governance and cooperation. Perhaps, like this is like a good start for the Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN to conduct a further collaboration or cooperation in the future. Just want to, like share my insight, especially on the current ASEAN general economic characteristic, and perhaps the EAEU should consider that the ASEAN nowadays dealing with the issues of the structural transformation. Now, all the sectors mainly lead to the services sectors and capital-intensive sectors. So there's the things that have to be considered. And also we know that currently and probably in the next 10 or 20 years, like the structures of the population in ASEAN, mostly, they have a productive age and productive age and populations. And then the most important thing as well, it mentioned based on the previous presenters, the issue of digitalization related to the issues of digital infrastructures and literacy, I think is also the issues that have to be considered in order to strengthen between those two sides. And then talking about the development priorities, I think I observed that at least there are three development priorities that, being considered by ASEAN member states. Number one, of course, the issues of the reindustrialization, and perhaps the EAEU could contribute in order to, promote this reindustrialization in ASEAN region, and perhaps focusing on how to make sure that the ASEAN member state, could produce more high-tech products in the future. And then the second development priorities, I think the issues of the connectivity. Dr. Connie also mentions about the maritime and railway network, and I believe that the issues of the logistic and transportation is very important. And perhaps, the EAEU also could contribute on that areas. And then last but not least, we are talking about innovation. And then I think, the exchange program between, EAEU laborers and also the ASEAN laborers, I think it's a very strategic way in order to promote or to exchange the knowledge and skills among the countries or regions. And then Mr. Alexandra also mentions that, in terms of trading activity, we know that intra-trade share within ASEAN is quite significant, but I think, talking about the market share, the value, I think, in the last 5 years, I think still, it's quite stagnant in the 21 and 22%. And perhaps, this is the opportunity for the EAEU in order to, to extend the, cooperation with the ASEAN. And then the other things, the last points that I want to share in this front table discussion, perhaps, there are several, important collaboration and cooperation that could be made between two parties, between the EAEU and also ASEAN. I think, previous speakers also mentioned about on how to, promote the capacity building between two regions. And perhaps, there are, of course, when we are talking about improving trading activity, we have to make sure that, both parties focus on how to facilitate trade, talking about the trade facilitation, and also trying to focus on the, sectoral cooperation. And I think, when we are talking about the energy transition, also food security, I think, EAEU could contribute into, ASEAN energy and also food security achievement. And then last but not least, I just want to, remind to all of us, basically when we are talking about cooperation, it should be based on the mutual respect and also the common goals. and perhaps, like the recognitions of each regions or countries' unique strengths and challenges. And, the other things that I want to conclude, perhaps in Indonesia we have a proverb that tak kenal maka tak sayang. So get to know something better before you can love it better. So I think that's the most important thing that we have to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fajar, for adding this very wonderful proverb and principle of Indonesian people, and also sharing your vision with us. And it's really important you mentioned about this logistics here, a real live practical projects that we can maybe touch, we can feel it as a really implemented project or really implemented idea, from the concept to its real implementation, which is very important now for our cooperation. Sometimes we just need to build, and when we build it, it's existing, and we have a cooperation basing on these real material things. Concepts and theories are good, yeah, but practical action is much more important sometimes. Thank you for that intervention, Dr. Fajar. And our next speaker, representing ASEAN Center, is a director of ASEAN Center in MGIMO University. As the ASEAN Center now is organizer of this round table jointly with Eurasian Economic Commission, I kindly invite a director of the ASEAN Center, Dr. Ekaterina Koldunova. She is joining us online. Dr. Ekaterina, are you with us now?
Well, I'm here. I hope you can see me. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, let me express my gratitude to the organizers of the Eurasian Economic Union's days in the ASEAN Secretariat, and to congratulate both the ASEAN Secretariat and Eurasian Economic Commission with the 5th anniversary of the MOU between ASEAN and Eurasian Economic Union. Since our time is very limited, let me suggest 3 ideas which I consider important speaking about and presenting them to both policymakers and experts. Much has been said about the way of integration of the Eurasian Economic Union and of ASEAN respectively, and I think that we can constatate now as experts, as academics, that these are 2 analytically important integration models which require further attention. They have their own integration experience, which also requires more careful study and more analytical work. And this experience truly goes beyond the classic theories of integration developed based on the European empirical data. So I think that analytically important both for researchers from Eurasian Economic Union and from ASEAN to look carefully at comparing nodes of our integration paths. And both organizations have very clearly stated plans of development beyond 2025, which we made a point of discussion here today. I think that we can continue exchange opinions on this integration plans further on. The second point is our today's world is a really complex system. Many speakers mentioned the changes in the global order, and in the current situation, even under very tremendous changes and transformations, still no country or regional bloc can exist, or more importantly, hope for development in isolation. Both ASEAN and the Eurasian Economic Union very much render account to this effect, and hence they develop both in their own way systems of international outreach or international cooperation with other states and regional integration blocs. And whatever differences do exist between the Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN in the way they do organize their integrational process, they now have legal frameworks. They now have systems of international cooperation, and we need to look closer at the way where we can match the Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN. So with the help of the Eurasian Economic Commission, the ASEAN Center has already started to study these conjunctions, these important conjunctions between two regional blocs. And finally, what I would like to suggest as an idea, complementing what Pak Fajar said, Ibu Koni mentioned, and the previous speakers, I think that the expert communities of the Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN, the researchers, should think about a long-standing, what we call it in the academia, research program of studying each other integration experience and integration plans. So we could have more in-depth analysis and knowledge of the plans of each other, because so far we just inform each other what we are going to do, what is the process, but we have not really embarked upon the scientific study of the of the areas where we do intersect in our development. And one very final point is that to contribute to this research program, by the end of this year, the ASEAN Center will launch the essay contest for young professionals and researchers, which will focus particularly on the integration experience of the Eurasian Economic Union. What does it mean for ASEAN? And what does the ASEAN integration experience mean for, or can mean for, the Eurasian Economic Union? And we very much hope that either you or your students or your colleagues will be able to participate and win trip to Moscow or to Jakarta, respectively. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk today. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your ideas, Dr. Ekaterina, and also as a part of ASEAN Center, I am supportive of this wonderful essay contest on Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN integrations, and I'm encouraging students sitting here, as I can see in the second row, representatives of Universitas Indonesia from Russian program studying this direction. Please join the contest, and maybe in the future we will see you as researchers who are developing this interesting and direction of our scientific academic cooperation, and maybe you'll write a book one day about Eurasian Economic Union, about its integration. It's in your hands. Please join, and I also encourage in Russian side for our Russian students watching now this broadcast to join the contest and join other contests on this wonderful direction of research. Thank you, Dr. Ekaterina, and I'm giving the floor to the next speaker now. We are welcoming Dr. Hendra Kaprisma, lecturer of Russian Studies, Literature Department, Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Indonesia. Dr. Hendra Kaprisma, please share your perspective on the agenda today.
Спасибо. Здравствуйте, добрый день, уважаемые дамы и господа. Разрешите представиться, меня зовут Hendra Kaprisma. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ahmed Fakhrujoy.
ASEAN and EAEU, sustaining economic development through social enhancement and growing people. I will focus on the S perspective in the ESG, looking through the current problems through ESG perspective. ESG, environmental, social, and governance. ESG are important to create long-term value and business resiliences, buffer the impact of the current crisis, hasten recovery, spur innovation, especially pre- and post-pandemic, and reduce risk to additional crises in the future. The S factor, socials, covers labor standard, wages and benefit, workplace and board diversity, racial justice, pay equity, human rights, talent management, community relations, privacy and data protections, health and safety, supply chains management, and other human capital and social justice issues. As ESG and SDGs. SDGs is very popular in Indonesia. We have SDGs award, especially in the Universitas Indonesia. We have UI Green Metric compared with the ESG. The scope is different. ESG primarily focuses on business and investors, emphasizing sustainable practice within organization and their financial impact, and SDGs address a border of global challenges, including social and environmental issues, and involve government, international organization, and civil society. So the responsibility of ESG is primarily driven by the private sector, with companies and investors taking the lead in implementing ESG practices. SDGs are a global responsibility involving governments, international organizations, and civil society to achieve the goal collectively. Socially, EAEU and ASEAN share the common traits for EX, diversified ethnic and religious group and growing community. These countries still face the same issues, such as workplace diversity, is like ethnicity, religion, and gender-wise, and child and also forced labor. Focus on Russia. Russia had especially faced ESG issues due to 2022 conflict with Ukraine and ESG view on Russia. Moody's ESG solutions. Assessment of Russia shows a relatively high level of commitment of international convention, but weak performance in implementation commitments, especially in human rights, labor standards, and international law. Russia, for the environmental performance, social performance, and also for the governance performance, shows weak performance in key institutional and governance areas. Our assessment of past performance trends indicates no improvement occurred over the past 10 years in most areas measured by the World Governance Indicator. Social aspect ratings in EAEU countries are satisfactory, but there are still room for improvement. And how about condition in ASEAN? HSBC found that 3 factors underpin why investors from member countries of the ASEAN are paying more attention to ESG. Half of the respondents cite pressure from the employees. 46% cite the regulatory environment, and 40% recognize the fact that employing ESG in one strategy can improve returns or reduce risk. New research on ESG from the economic impact that is supported by Bailey Gifford complements these findings and shows that corporates in Asia Pacific are more likely than those from other regions to dedicate a new specialized unit for ESG reporting, and they already display high level of ESG disclosure. Additionally, companies in Asia Pacific have the highest levels of disclosure, and investors have the highest confidence when it comes to social metrics. The S factor in ESG compared with other region analyzed. So the social aspect rating in Asian countries are still low. And how about the urgency to implement ESG? Every year, the call for increased sustainability grows louder. Stakeholders want transparency into what businesses are doing to increase their sustainability. Customers want it from their brands as they look for sales value when making purchasing decisions. So, knowing that customer and partner evaluation of a company's sustainability holds real weight, one that transparency as well, products market as sustainable grow 2.7 faster than non-sustainable products. Corporate responsibility practice boosts sales by 20%. 92% of buyers trust socially or environmentally responsible brand. 55% of consumers are willing to pay more for eco-friendly brands. And the last, sustainable brands have 34% loyalty compared to 27% for less sustainable brands. The general solutions, intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations such as EAEU and ASEAN must create and implement ESG standards to industry participants in their respective countries. The social solution, this is the most important thing, DEI initiative are empowering marginalized communities and promoting inclusive development. And the second, employee engagement and well-being. The third, community involvement. And the fourth, ethical behavior and social responsibility, including advocating for human rights. And fifth, find, engage, and priorities. Doing business with corporate partners, vendors, and supply chains providers to meet social good goals. And sixth, partnering with NPOs, supporting local community non-profit with a closer ear to the ground about what works can redouble your social investment. Sharpening the S factors in ESG with a business mindset will help investors and the public alike recognize that doing social good is simply good business. So, ASEAN and EAEU countries must collaborate to improve social factors to support a sustainable economic growth which results in positive and long-term value to the community. This is from my side, from S factor of the environment, social and governance, for the ESG, for the enhancement of social and growing people, ASEAN and EAEU. Thank you very much. Spasibo balsai.
Please, Your Excellency,
Yes,
you would like to add something.
Well, thank you. I'd like to make one remark. Of course, the issue of ESG and sustainable and social development is very important, and we are doing this work in the Eurasian Economic Union. However, I think we couldn't rely on the Washington rating agencies. They totally falsified ratings for our countries. It was quite clear for everybody during the financial crisis 2008. And in Russia, in the Eurasian Economic Union, we don't use the American rating agencies because we couldn't rely on their estimations. They're politicized. They give wrong, they're trying to give bad marks for Russia, for Belarus, for the Eurasian Economic Union as a whole. And here, for instance, you mentioned Moody's estimations concerning the situation in Russia. I could say that it is not correct. Absolutely not correct. So I think we have to elaborate our own ratings. We tried a lot of times to ask American rating agencies to show their methodology. You see, it doesn't exist. They didn't publish it. How we can use their estimations if they even do not publish methodology, how they calculate them? For this reason, we have started in Eurasian Economic Union to elaborate our own ratings, and including credit ratings, ESG ratings, and now we come to the conclusion that we have to respect the national rating agencies. And next step, which proposed by Russia, to create the Eurasian rating agency, which will be use the methodology which we can see, can approve, and can trust it. So I think it is very important subject to work together, to include in our maybe mutual agenda of Eurasian ASEAN cooperation for the nearest future.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Yeah, and it's a really important observation from the part of His Excellency Minister, as we have now this complicated problem of ranking, of rating assessment, as it's very politicized. It's the same thing maybe with the dollar. When dollar is like an other national and international currencies are serving international purposes, international objectives on their just base, and when all these values are followed by all the countries on a just and equal footing, it's effective. Here we are all using these international tools. But when international tools are politicized, this situation is changing, yeah, because of the political substance. From my experience, I can only add that for Indonesia and for many Southeast Asian countries, Western rankings are not also objective. As you can see, when there is a rapprochement between the United States, for example, or Indonesia, the rankings will say, oh, you know, Indonesia improved really well in corruption, corruption is already overcome, and everything is fine. And after, for example, split in political relation, you will see how rankings are going low. And sometimes it's a politicization of the discourse, and there is a real need to compare different sources, not maybe to substitute Western by non-Western sources, but to compare these different sources and have an objective assessment of a real process. And thank you so much for that observation. And thank you, Dr. Hendrik Prisma, also for your additional information and for your presentation too. And we kindly invite the next speaker from the Eurasian Economic Union country representing Kyrgyzstan. We invite Dr. Aynura Akhmatalieva, Deputy Dean of Kyrgyz Russian Slavic University, which is joining us online. Dr. Aynura, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. And you're visible perfectly well. Please, welcome. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Today it's my pleasure to reflect my views on cooperation between Central Asian region and ASEAN member states. So briefly, today I would like to talk about some regional peculiarities of Central Asian state and ASEAN member states. Secondly, I would like to outline basic dimensions of bilateral cooperation between Central Asia and ASEAN member states, and finally draw some perspectives of cooperation between these two regions. So, as you know, Central Asian region is situated in the center of the Eurasian continent and is comprised of 5 former Soviet republics. But unfortunately, our region is distanced from ASEAN members geographically, and so this geographical distancing also created all sorts of gaps in their political, economic, cultural, and certainly trade ties between our regions. Although there are some similarities between our regions, which are, in my perspective, will create wonderful platform for future cooperation. And now I would like to draw these similarities. First of all, when we speak about Central Asia or ASEAN group, we do not necessarily speak about homogeneous regions, fully integrated, but rather we speak about heterogeneous entities with diverging political regimes, starting from semi-democracies to authoritarian regimes. Also, we can speak about their diverging interests in cooperation with foreign actors like global powers like US, China, Russia, or the regional powers, India, Turkey, Iran, and etc. But also they have some similarities in terms of their foreign policy approach, like as we call in IR, a hedging strategy, in terms of responding to the changing geopolitical landscape, especially in such regions as South China region or the Ukrainian case for Central Asian states. And the second approach in their foreign policy is so-called soft regionalism, when we don't have very institutionalized forms of cooperation between these member states, but rather they create decisions on consensual manners. For the last decade, both Central Asian states and ASEAN members have been prioritizing economic cooperation and exploiting pragmatic approach in their foreign policies. So all these similarities, in my perspective, can create a wonderful platform for future cooperations in many dimensions. And as the first speaker was saying, there are some common values that sovereignty and independence, territorial integrity, non-interference into domestic issues, and also Central Asian states as well as ASEAN members try to ensure that none of the global powers will dominate in their regions. So I think this experience of ASEAN members and as well as Central Asian states, as we call it, multi-vector policy or multi-dimensional policy, can be a useful tool for building such a dialogue as Central Asia plus ASEAN, because creating such a dialogue will serve a platform for developing new agendas in many new dimensions. Even though their bilateral relations are very limited, for instance, Kyrgyzstan has diplomatic presence only in Malaysia, whereas Kazakhstan has diplomatic missions in 4 out of 10 ASEAN member states. So this diplomatic presence, the limitation of this diplomatic presence also causes gaps in their close economic cooperation. So bilateral ties are limited and they are pretty much determined by third actors as Russia and China. In the case of China, we can speak about this Eurasian Economic Union, which has been serving a bridging platform for Central Asia and ASEAN as two regions interested in cooperation, but during two different causes, they have not been established close ties since nowadays. And as for future, since we are discussing the future prospects of the Eurasian Economic Union, I think there are several dimensions which could addressed. Central Asian states, including Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, they have declared so-called digital transformation as a goal. We are interested not just in software, but also in hardware infrastructure from ASEAN member states in order to build so-called smart city projects, as well as develop such projects in e-education, e-medicine, e-commerce, and etc. So for now, I think some ASEAN Southeast Asia states have been serving a model for economic reforms since Kazakhstan has been using the example of Singapore and especially the Lee Kuan Yew's model for economic transformation. We are also interested in developing 5G and 6G internet infrastructure. So this digital transformation could be one of the bridges of future possible cooperation. And secondly, as my colleague said, Dr. Nikita, I think creating the dialogue Central Asia plus ASEAN or Eurasian Economic Union, Central Asia plus ASEAN cannot be done without younger generation and expertise. We need to build close ties between expert communities in order to make not just to examine the levels of communication and cooperation, but also draw the future lines of cooperation, because institutional forms of cooperation like the Eurasian Economic Union or different formats of diplomatic dialogues can only draw the frames of this cooperation, but the essence and the nature of cooperation can lie on real ordinary people who need to know each other, and such platforms can serve for them to know better their qualities and possibilities as well as capabilities. So I think one of the perspective dimensions is also developing so-called creative economy, which is becoming one of the driving forces of Kyrgyzstan's economy in terms of digital transformation and exploiting digital environment to develop, especially for such small economies as Kyrgyzstan has, and many like Laos or Cambodia maybe also rely on this experience. So I think the future for cooperation between Central Asia and ASEAN members would be interested in developing creative economy and digital transformation. Before that, I think for 2045 perspective, Eurasian Economic Union also can create different levels of cooperation, not just on institutional base, but also people-to-people dialogue, maybe business-to-business, and also on the experts level. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and also appreciate this invitation to the roundtable.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aynura, for joining us from Kyrgyzstan, for having time to join this round table, and this very wonderful perspective from Kyrgyzstan point of view, as we have many of Eurasian Economic Union countries represented because of you, and thank you so much for your efforts to joining round table and your wonderful intervention on that. And your idea that you already mentioned here is about that we are copying sometimes in Eurasian Economic Union, in Russia, in many of our countries of our region, copying the experience of Southeast Asia. And it's important now, as we have this experience as one of the leading examples in the world. Not only European concepts or American concepts can be followed, yeah, as an example. It's maybe not, it's visible sometimes, yeah, I can say. Yeah, but we should mention that and we should understand that, because it's a very important issue now that we can share experiences and exchange these practical experiences standards in our everyday policy. Thank you, and we'll continue to the next speaker. We kindly invite Dr. Muhadi Sugiono, Head of Research, Journal and Cooperation Division of CSS Gadjah Mada University. Please welcome Dr. Muhadi Sugiono. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kuklin. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer, distinguished guests and participants. I would like to, in the very limited time available, to talk about two things. The first thing is to talk about the rationale, the need for the cooperation between ASEAN and EAEU. And the second one is to look at a specific case in which both parties can develop further, especially with regard to the interests of ASEAN. First of all, let me say that in the literature, we can talk about Asia and Asia and Eurasia as two important things. Because if we talk about Asia, people talk about Asian century. 21st century is Asian century. But when we are talking about Eurasia, Eurasia is the future of the world. It is very strategic in terms of the development for the world in the future. Now, with this reality that ASEAN is part of the Asian century and Eurasia is part of the future, it is necessary for us to look at how both sides can take advantage of the cooperation in the future. Let me first look at what is attractive from ASEAN for the EAEU member countries. Of course, we can talk about the economic performance. We talk about ASEAN as a large growing market with more than 600 million population, with the GDP as 3.166 into 2020, and the economic growth is steady prior to the pandemic, around 5%. And this reality, this performance, economic performance, is of course quite interesting, quite attractive for the members of EAEU, because not to say, at least when we are looking at the Western sanction of Russia. Of course, it does not affect only Russia, but also other members as well. And this makes ASEAN become more and more interesting as an alternative economic partner. Apart from that, as the previous speaker and the moderator mentioned, that ASEAN has a very unique experience in terms of the ability to manage the regional order through various mechanisms in which ASEAN try to stabilize the even conflictual relations among the big power. So this is a quite interesting, of course, experience for the EAEU members to learn from. Now, let's take a look at on the other side, why EAEU is also very interesting for ASEAN. For ASEAN member countries, EAEU member countries are actually a growing market, but mostly untapped market. Not many have been done so far to utilize this big market. But as we know that several individual member countries of ASEAN has tried to build a strong connection, especially Vietnam, Thailand, and Singapore. They have invested relatively heavily in these areas as well. And for ASEAN, EAEU member countries have a very strategic position in the context of global development, especially when we are talking about Belt and Road Initiative, where Eurasian countries are become the heartland, become the most important venue in which the East meet West. So it will give a very important and strategic position for ASEAN when it try to connect Southeast Asia to the other part of the world, like Europe as well as the Central Asia. So with that in mind, then it is also very interesting for us to develop clear as well as concrete plan to develop closer cooperation between the two parties. And one of the reasons why it is interesting for us here in ASEAN to talk about the Eurasia is because Eurasian countries are actually rich in natural and rich in natural resources as well as energy. And this is something that I will talk about later. Now, when we are talking about ASEAN, what is ASEAN interest now? Alexander Chandra mentioned that there are at least two things that are very important as a core interest of ASEAN. First of all, is the developing digital economy. This is a very important issue because now ASEAN digital economy reached 194 billion US dollar in 2020, and in 2023, it is projected to reach 218 trillion. So this is a big and significant development, which in 2013, it is predicted that it will increase to 1 trillion US dollar. So this is quite a huge amount. This makes ASEAN as a leading digital economy in the world. And ASEAN economy is now moving toward the digital economy. This is something that we have to take into account very seriously with regard to the prospect of collaboration with ASEAN. And the second core interest of ASEAN is, of course, the greening economy, the transition, energy transition. I will tell you about a story of last year. There were 3 summits took place in Southeast Asia. The first was ASEAN Summit in Cambodia, and then G20 Summit in Indonesia, and then APEC Summit in Thailand. What are the issues? There are 2 issues. First is economic recovery. Of course, this is very, very, very important issue. First, because of pandemic, and the second one because of the conflict in Europe. Now, economic recovery, to bring back the economic performance of ASEAN is one thing. But there is another challenge. What about the climate action? We can talk about economic recovery by promoting economic growth and so on, but now we cannot do it at our own will. There is a limit to that. That is the need to think of sustainability. So the 2 important issues discussed in the 3 summits were about economic recovery, but taking into account of the economic sustainability. So within this context, energy security in ASEAN has been one of the most important issues and one of the most important interests in ASEAN. With its economic growth and reliance so far on the fossil fuel, ASEAN would become the net importer of natural gas and coal, even starting from 2025 and 2039. So if ASEAN would like to maintain its economic performance with its current policy, then ASEAN needs so much import of coal and natural gas if there is no change in the policy. So within this context, the ASEAN Summit in Cambodia reiterated the need to implement ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation Phase 2, that is 2021 to 2025, through deployment of cleaner energy technologies and end-user electrification. So ASEAN is starting to think about changing the policy from relying on fossil fuel into more renewable energy. And then the G20 summit also adopted the Just Energy Transition, a $20 billion US program dedicated to decarbonizing Indonesia power system. And finally, the OPEC summit in Bangkok also adopted Bangkok goal for the circular green economy, a sustainable model to pursue advanced resource efficiency, less waste, and value creativity business model. So all this innovation become the most important component of the policy in Southeast Asian countries and in Asia. So this also actually create the opportunity if we would like to tap this demand for cleaner energy in the future with, in the cooperation between ASEAN and EEA. Especially its individual member countries have already adopted a progressive policy with regard to the greening economy. For example, in Indonesia, we adopted the Just Energy Transition Plan to attract investment and policy plan. And especially to bring the coal-fired power plant into retirement. This is a very ideal goal. Vietnam also adopts similar policy as Indonesia.
Sorry, 1 minute, please.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then also Bangkok, Thailand. All those indicate that we are clearly moving toward environmental consciousness. And the challenge is whether or not the ambitious plan toward the green economy, to the energy transition toward the green economy, can be combined with the maintenance of the economic growth that ASEAN has achieved so far, especially taking into account the geopolitical context, as previous speakers also mentioned, the competition in the Indo-Pacific, as well as the crisis of energy that we are facing today. So these are among other things that concern ASEAN, and I think understanding the interest and the concern of Southeast Asian countries will become the good entry point for developing the cooperation between ASEAN and EUE member countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mukhadi, for this wonderful in-depth analysis of the situation. That's a Gajah school, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, thank you so much. And I kindly invite a representative of one more country of Eurasian Economic Union of Armenia, Dr. Sergei Melkonyan, APRI Armenia Research Fellow, who is joining us online. Dr. Sergei, can you hear us?
Yes, do you hear me?
Yeah, sure. You're visible. Connection is good. Thank you. Please, welcome.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon from Armenia. I'm honored to be part of this round table and want to thank the organizing committee for their hard work that has brought together a diverse group of participants. I will be very brief and I will be as brief as possible. So the shift of the world center of development to Asia leads to change in the foreign policy strategy of many states. Armenia is one of them. So in this context, special attention is focused on the ASEAN bloc, one of the largest economic associations in the world. And given the ASEAN potential from the one side and the global growing instability from another side, ASEAN can become the engine of global growth. So in this case, Armenia, being a member of Eurasian Economic Union, has a high expectation from the cooperation between the two organizations. We, Republic of Armenia, we have diplomatic and economic relations with all ASEAN countries, but the problem is they are not the high level as we would like. So the high economic indicators are in relations with Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, and the Philippines. So we also have the bilateral legal framework with ASEAN members, including different agreements, like agreement on the exclusion of double taxation, agreement on trade services and investments, as well as a number of cooperation agreements between ministers and departments in different fields, in science, culture, agriculture, economic, tourism, and others. The main base of the agreements cover Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, and the Philippines. So in addition to multilateral dialogue between Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN, Armenia has necessary bilateral legal framework for the development of cooperation. But the problem is that there is a lack of content in this cooperation. One of the most ambitious initiatives of Armenia in the direction of Asia is the implementation of the transport route that will connect South Caucasus with Asia through Persian Gulf. So this project is aimed at developing the transport potential of the region to the further connection to Asian markets. An important role in this context is played by Iran, and it's important to mention that Iran signed a free trade FTA agreement with Eurasian Economic Union. So this can facilitate the start of the economic activity when we use this transport communication. I've outlined three most promising from Armenian perspective areas of cooperation. As Dr. Kuklin mentioned, that we should focus on some practice-oriented solutions. Three of them. First, given to a low base of Armenia's cooperation with ASEAN countries, the activation of work between Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN will play an important role in accelerating of cooperation. An example of this could be an expansion of the FTA agreement with ASEAN countries, like scaling this format, because we have positive example of that. For example, when Eurasian Economic Union signed an FTA agreement with Singapore, here in Armenia we can record an increase in trade turnover between Armenia and Singapore. Second, another significant direction is developing of e-commerce. This field has a potential to become one of the most promising, considering the major shift in this direction following the pandemic consequences. The development of e-commerce will facilitate establishing a direct connection between producers in Southeast Asian countries and consumers in the Eurasian Economic Union and vice versa. So the important is that in this way, the horizontal connections on the ground can be created, boosting economic cooperation at a higher level between Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN. And broader such cooperation will facilitate creation of digital infrastructure, cooperation in cybersecurity, as it was mentioned before, and in other areas. And the last one, if in the first case, Eurasian Economic Union can act as an accelerator, then in this case, Armenia itself can propose an agenda for cooperation between the Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN. So we can try to overcome one of the problems that was mentioned by Dr. Konye, the geographical distance. So in this case, the ASEAN direction may be one of the most important during this unblocking communication that is taking place in the South Caucasus. So connecting Eurasian Economic Union with ASEAN, and the most important, the western part of Eurasian Economic Union, we might achieve this goal by connecting these two markets, two important areas, via this new transport corridor from Armenia to Iran, then to Asian market. Thank you. I was really brief as it was possible.
Dear Dr. Sergei Melkonyan, thank you so much. My dear friend, we're studying together. And this is a wonderful intervention from the part of Armenia, as we have now broadened our geographical presence of our speakers today. And it's a very good opportunity that in Armenia you have this wonderful approach. And third, that we need to overcome geographical distances between our blocks. And we can do that not by means maybe of geography sometimes, but by the means of cooperation and diplomacy. Thank you for that wonderful intervention, Sergei. And I kindly ask the next speaker, Dr. Hendra Manorung, lecturer, Department of International Relations, Universitas Professor Dr. Mustopo, to be a little bit brief, the last but not the least speaker today, but a very prominent specialist on Russia and Eurasian integration in Indonesia. Dr. Hendra, please welcome.
Spasibo большое, Dr. Nikita, distinguished speakers, Your Excellencies, and also that honorable participants. Well, because this is my last one, well, what else that I can say, because everything has already been delivered perfectly. Прекрасно получится. Но давайте вот это, если мы, well, увидим, if we just see that this is actually externally that we can see that how any country that involved either in ASEAN or in EAEU consider its role and its contributions to what? Of course, to peace and stability, to welfare, people welfare. As we know that the signing of the MOU, this is not Lyoki Damasnizdani. What eta? Tizelo. Почему? Why? Потому что вот такое тяжело Damasnizdani. Well, какие-либо
saying in Russian, this is difficult. That's like homework.
Of course that this is regarding to each country's positions, just like we know that leadership, national leadership. What about President Vladimir Putin leadership by 2024? As we know that Indonesia also is approaching general elections. Would it be changed? Would it be only, that shifting policy? Well, we know that we are talking about continuity. His Excellency has already mentioned, this is not about changing his policy suddenly, because the process of self, well, I do realize I'm also that student. I'm also a learner. But, of course, it needs to figure it out. What would be the geopolitical positions? As we know that Indonesia regionally is the leader of Southeast Asia. Well, some of the Asian countries, maybe they do not like it. What about Russia, which also perceived as a leader of the EAEU? Of course, I studied in Russia, St. Petersburg State University. I realized that when I just arrived in Sheremetyevo, Vulkovo or Vnukovo, well, of course, one of the most important thing is to win people's hearts and mind. We just talk about many strategic interests and issues. Would it be easy to access Eurasia market? We talk about digital transformations. What about from EAEU countries to Southeast Asian countries market? Would it be easy? So what will be the solutions? We talk about people-to-people connections, interactions, soft power. If I'm not mistaken, that Professor Victor Sumsky from MGIMO, when we just met together several times in Jakarta. The most important thing is regarding to the soft power. That's why when I just got this topic, actually, overlapping interest, there is opportunity and challenge. Opportunity and challenge to be further elaborated. Could you please, next slide, please? Yeah, and then this one, Eurasia, Great Eurasia Partnership, which include also that this one is ASEAN, EAEU, SEO, and member of both EAEU and SEO. Well, this is geopolitically heavy one. Even me, as a international relations student, I don't want to mention as a scholar, because I'm still long life learner. It is quite challenging, especially when we know that Indonesia now has problem with the European Union. Would it be EAEU is only the vehicle to replace European Union because Indonesia has problem, and then the case also brought to WTO. So what would be the future then, if we talk like that? What would be the next 5 years about this ASEAN and also that EAEU? Possible scenario. Or this is just like, sorry that, like ASEAN and also China. Like what President Xi Jinping mentions. What would be the future of the ASEAN and China relations in the next 10, 20 years? Or this is just like a mambo-jumbo talk show? Wow. Of course, that this is quite interesting, yeah? Well, geographically, well, I do remember, I do...
Sorry for interrupting, 1 minute, please.
All right, thank you. I think that we go to the conclusions. Could you please go for the last slide? Thank you. The last one. Yeah. So, well, a closer exchange of information. Well, I think that distinguished speaker has already delivered their presentations. EAEU business community should study the market of ASEAN state and as vice versa. I don't want to talk about this only above the paper. Yeah. To win the heart and mind also important. As we know that this is also prioritizing investment in agriculture, innovations, food and food productions. ASEAN and EU trade has huge prospect for expansions. I think His Excellency also mentions, the Minister, emphasizing cooperation in digital technology and development of a circular economy, and more collaborations on climate change and global warming issue. I think that, well, before I conclude, самое главное в хорошие отношения – это завоевать наши сердца и умы. To win the people, to win the war, I think Sun Tzu also mentions, is winning their heart and also minds. Mesti tak I astanawich, mestami, jesli kenim ni iti. Don't only make a dream, we must go forward. Thank you very much. Большое спасибо.
Dr. Hendra, thank you so much for such a philosophical and deep conclusion and very nice talk and a presentation. As usual, Dr. Hendra, thank you. Yeah, and as for our discussion, unfortunately, our dear discussants which are presenting here, I will mention them, our honorable discussants as Dr. Ahmad Fakhroroji from Universitas Indonesia, also one of the prominent Russian studies speaker in Indonesia, Mr. Dvirio Sambodo from DPRD Jakarta Parliament, he's presenting here today also, and Dr. Andrei Notohamidjoyo, Assistant Deputy for the Cultural Advancement and Preservation, Coordinating Ministry of Human Development and Cultural Affairs. I'm really grateful for you for having time to join our discussion. Unfortunately, we can't proceed with discussion as it is, but I think we'll have an opportunity to continue today during our common program, which I already sent you, and we continue, I think, our cooperation in the future in Jakarta, in Moscow, I hope, in different capitals of the Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN countries. And as for concluding remarks for today, I kindly ask His Excellency the Minister to make a short conclusion, and then we will continue with one short intervention.
Thank you, Nikita. First of all, I would like to thank everybody, all participants who contribute to our discussion. It was rather fruitful and interesting, this exchange of views and of information, of course, of critical importance to our further cooperation. I quite agree with the last speaker who mentioned the importance of information sharing, and we here together are doing this. And I like, by the way, very much your presentation, especially the the map of the Great Eurasian Partnership. I think it's now we have the image of the core of the new world economic system. And we have to start to construct this new economic system here together. You know that Eurasian Economic Union already has relations with One Belt, One Road initiative, and we also started free trade negotiations with India. So your map is exactly show that we are moving in the right direction, trying to implement President Putin's initiative of Great Eurasian Partnership. And in spite of the fact that we still have a lot of to do in order to increase our trade, mutual investments, to understand each other better, to make our work more intensive, trying to overcome those bottlenecks which we mentioned today. I'd like to mention that even now, the ASEAN countries taken together is the second largest partner of the Eurasian Economic Union on imports. So ASEAN is the second after China. And I think in the nearest future, India will be the third. So we are already concentrating our economic activity in this region of Great Eurasian Partnership. And I'm sure that talking to each other, our regional economic organizations, Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN, can elaborate on the new financial, economic and trade architecture of this large Eurasian partnership, which should be the basis for the world economy as a whole. So I think we make an important step in today's discussion, find new ideas, and we shall work together further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, the Excellency, the Minister Sergei Glaziev. And one more thing before we conclude our today's roundtable, as we have some presence from the part of the ASEAN Center. First of all, to the ASEAN Secretariat, represented by Alexander Chandra, and to dear speakers. And I'll have one interesting thing. First of all, I will describe in a little what are these presence. Yeah, that's from the part also from MGIMO University and ASEAN Center. First of all, I would like to represent the monograph, which one of, I think, there's maybe the only one, but not the only one, but there are a few of it monographs in Russian about ASEAN. That's a fully, completely monograph, ASEAN on the way of integration in Russian language, prepared by MGIMO University, ASEAN Center, and Institute of China and Contemporary Asia Studies of Russian Academy of Sciences, and this one of the most full edition of this monograph represented to the Secretariat. Excellent. Impressive. Thank you so much. And one more present. We have some merch here. We have a wonderful brochure of ASEAN Center, which will be given to the speakers. Yeah, it's about our events we are doing during the year. We're organizing more than 100 events on ASEAN countries each year, and that's, I think, an achievement. But another important present for the Secretariat and for you, Mr. Alexander, is a Russian matryoshka. Very well known here, yeah. And it's not a simple matryoshka. It's a matryoshka from the Russian fairy tale Kurachka Ryaba, Ryaba the hen. It's about the hen living in a family of the old woman and the old man. And one day, this hen laid out a golden egg. And an old man tried to crack down this egg, but there was nothing. And the old woman tried to crack it down, and there's nothing. This golden egg was very, very strong, and it can be broken. But only one small mice, by a little sway of her tail, just pushed the golden egg, and it was broken. And after that, an old man and old woman started to cry, and this wonderful Ryaba the hen, national character of Russian folklore, told to her family, "Oh, please do not cry, the old man, do not cry, an old woman. I will give you an egg but not the golden one, but a simple, ordinary one. And the idea of this fairy tale is we need to value not the theories, which are golden ideals, which are concepts, which are ideal to us by their implementation, but we need to value what we have now, what sustains us as an ordinary egg from this hen. It's what we achieved and what we can maintain and what can maintain us as parties, as people in our today's contemporary and very complicated world. And this is a present for you from Russian tradition to the ASEAN countries' tradition. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And I think by this we can conclude, and I will be giving other presents to our honorable speakers. From the part of the moderator, from the part of the ASEAN Center, I really thankful and grateful for you all to having time to join our discussion today. For our wonderful speakers from the Eurasian Economic Union side, thank you, Your Excellency, the Minister, to joining us today for this round table. And our dear speakers from ASEAN side, Mr. Alexander Chandra, with your wonderful presentation, and representatives, of course, of Indonesian expert community, prominent experts, prominent scientists, academicians, people representing universities which are leading in this country. Thank you so much for joining us today, for having time. Some of them arrived from Bali, some of them from Jakarta, not only all of them living in Jakarta, but they found the time to join us here today at the ASEAN Secretariat. Thank you so much. It was a really wonderful event and pleasure for me to moderate it. Thank you.